I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Thank you all so much for joining. I feel like, wow. So it was actually right after my first video on Mindi Kassotis's trial. My first video where I reviewed Nick's testimony, Heather reached out and so I knew for like a week that we had this scheduled. Sarah, like my brain is just like and she could have given her interview to so many different people and she chose my platform to do a pre-recorded interview. So her and I met yesterday and recorded this interview. Nothing major was cut out. Y'all know I do a lot of ums, and so I edited out a few of mine and just made things flow a little bit better. And I thought doing it pre-recorded would just make it so that if anything was said that we needed to take out, that we could have that option. Nothing was shared during the recording that needed to be taken out. I did just want to mention Nicholas Kassotis, he has appeals that he can do. So some things can't be discussed publicly. And I just hope that you all just respect her boundaries with that. Any questions that I can answer, I will. I also encouraged Heather that with true crime, sometimes the audience wants to know everything. And in the midst of all of this, so Mindi was the true, like Mindi was, she's the victim. She's the reason we're all here. Nicholas's actions had a ripple effect on everyone in his life, including his parents. And so I think it's really good for people to have boundaries and decide what to share and what not to. So for somebody that knows nothing about this case, Nicholas Kassotis is a former naval officer, so a JAG officer, and he was sentenced to life in prison after he was convicted of not only unaliving but also his wife was found in pieces. Please know on YouTube there are certain words that I can't say, and so that's why. But the graphic details are listed in the description. Hunters found Mindi and really, and we do talk about this in the interview, how Heather became involved with the case was she saw a picture and it looked a lot like Mindi, and she reached out to the authorities. And he was found guilty on, I think, 12 charges and the jury took an hour and about 15 minutes or so to decide his fate. He brought up this imaginary, what I believe, and what a lot of people believe, is this imaginary Jim who he thought was an FBI person, but then realized it wasn't an FBI person. And anytime, in my opinion, anytime Nicholas didn't really want to answer a question, it was either Jim did it or Mindi said it. Two people that we can't corroborate anything with. And so the whole thing was just wow. And to actually get to talk to somebody that was involved and for Heather to reach out and say just how my coverage helped her understand some dynamics that were happening. And then she just wanted to share a little bit more. I will just caution everyone. So Heather and I are talking. So Heather's sharing from her opinions and experiences, and we are centering Mindi. And really, I'm glad because I think for the first time ever, Nicholas was held accountable for his actions. And then I also just wanted to say that as you're watching this, there may be some parts that may be because she's going to talk about difficult things, and but know that she's at peace and and that she's okay with the fact that Nick tried to make her the villain in this story. I thought she came across incredibly credible, and so when she says that she didn't cheat before the marriage and all of that, I believe her. And often individuals that are accusing other people of cheating, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, because Nick was over here trying to talk about what other people are doing, and he wouldn't admit that when he was communicating with who would become his third wife, who would have that thankfully annulled, when he was communicating with Samantha, that that wasn't an affair. And so, like, the whole thing was just wow. I will be communicating in the chat and answering any questions that you all have, and we are going to hop right into things. So let me share my screen. There we go. So I'm going to be in the background and I'm going to let this play. If anybody does, so if there are any streamers or anybody that wants to use pieces of this, please just credit the stream and leave a link to the full interview in your description. All right, let's go. I am so thankful to be joined by Heather Thomas. She is the first wife of Nick. Sorry about that. Technology was not okay. So let's try this again. So let's add this to the stage, and then maybe why won't the tubes? And I have the full download if I need to play it. If for some reason YouTube isn't letting me play it, but they should. I've never had this problem before. All right. So let's try this again. All right. So let's try one more time. Let's play this. I should be able to do full screen. I am so thankful to be joined by Heather Thomas. She is the first wife of Nicholas Kassotis. For anyone that followed that trial, I already did the overview, and Heather reached out after my first video on this case and just mentioned that there were aspects that were helpful and that there was additional information that she just wanted to share so that we as a community can kind of grow and heal together. Is there anything you'd like to share about yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Berry. I mean, really, your analysis was spot on, including the humor, right? We got to sometimes find the light. I think, it was a tough situation to be in, and you recognizing that was really helpful and meaningful. Being re-traumatized in a way was definitely not something that I bargained for, but at any rate, it was helpful to kind of see the breakdown from your point of view. But there's just a lot that, I mean, we're not here to set the record straight. We're not here to blame. We're not here to diagnose, all that good stuff, right? But there's people behind the witnesses, and there's a lot that, it wasn't appropriate for that venue. And so I think if I can share just some of my embarrassment, maybe, and some of my thoughts and feelings and experiences to help someone, even if just one person, I want to do that. So that's why I reached out, fellow Virginian. So you kind of get it as far as kind of how it is in Northern Virginia. So I was like, I think I'd like to talk to Dr. Berry.
Nice. And I was just because there's some people that as they hear everything, they start to question everything. And that's kind of what people that get into true crime. I always try to cover it from a perspective that is because really the defendant is on trial, and and I didn't want the witnesses to get a lot of hate. You mentioned the second, kind of getting re-traumatized, and that's probably the court process, having to go through all of this again, and then it being a trial that was streamed as well. That just has to be a lot. To me, your testimony came across like accurate, because I'm sure there are a lot of emotions, but I think you did a really good job managing that as you were sharing that information. And I think the jury likely found, along with everything else, they likely found it to be credible.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, you know, I've always kind of lived by what other people think of me is none
Mhm.
of my business. That's
Yes.
just kind of how I live my life. And so that was super helpful in that case because, you know, overall, yes, I got the same sentiment and support. I mean, after speaking, you know, with Mindy's friends and just hearing who she was just really reinforced how important it was for me to testify.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, it's a small part, but everybody has a small part in kind of getting to the point where we're at now, right? And so, you know, it's unfortunate that, of course, going in before any of this stuff, I mean, I knew that I would absolutely be trashed because
Mm.
it's convenient. It's convenient. It's a sad story, maybe. You know, it garners sympathy. I didn't learn until much later that that's kind of the going story about me. I just, you know, what I said in court is true. Like we were truly amicable. I mean, it's just kind of unreal to see some of the old emails, of course, that I've been digging through and kind of you kind of look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, like really? You know, about us meeting like with my husband and myself and then with Mindy and Nick, like, let's go out for dinner. I mean, that never happened, but like we said it, you know? And so just having to hear that, I already knew I was opening myself up for further scrutiny, further this and that. I mean, the court documents that I submitted speak for themselves. It
Yeah.
had a separation date, it had a divorce date. And of course, you know, I'm not going to get into a whole timeline. I'm not going to do that because I wasn't asked that. Right. So when we're in court, and any of you, hopefully nobody has to testify, especially not on court TV. But if you do, good advice. You answer the question.
Yeah.
And if you're telling the truth, you don't have to go into like a wax poetic situation. You say what they ask. What did they ask you? Okay. You know, are there some times where I wanted to say more? Absolutely, I did. Because a lot of that, you know, will instinctively come up. But I mean, so the three things that I think of before I ever say anything: is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? I'm
Yes.
sure that I did not make that up. I probably took it from somewhere, but that's sort of kind of how I had to approach this
Mhm.
in a way and say, okay, you know, like I'm not here to bash Nick.
Yeah.
You know, I already have the evidence that I submitted as far
Mhm.
as what happened when. And I think the prosecutor did a fabulous job with setting everything up and just and showing the exhibits and doing, you know, the jurors had all of that information to be able to see for themselves, right? And that's kind of the whole point. And so I'm there to confirm, I'm there to, you know, explain what happened, to give some light on to maybe some things that were pretty fuzzy as to why this whole thing ever maybe started.
Yeah.
And what I really wanted to get away from is the salacious nature that it was kind of being framed as. I wanted to be the most boring witness that you ever did see in your life. I did not want to be like, I'm not the star of the show, nor
Yeah.
did I ever want to be the star
Yeah.
of the show. You know?
And for me, because somebody asked me to watch Mindy's parents' testimony,
Right.
and when I watched it, it was really good testimony. And before the verdict and before everything came out, it was just they did a great job testifying. There was nothing wrong with anything. When I watched your testimony, I think also because I know Virginia, and in Virginia, in order to get a divorce, you have to be separated for at least 6 months. Like,
Yes.
you have to be. And so the way that he was framing the dates and everything, because I'm a Virginian, I know at minimum 6 months, sometimes a year. It
Right.
just kinda depends.
Yeah.
And, Virginia, like, 'cause if you're separated, you can't do their laundry. You can't. Virginia has very strict rules with what
Right.
can and cannot happen within a marital separation and how they go about all of that. And so, looking back, are there any, and I'm sure there are, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Are there any red flags from your relationship with Nick?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? So I'll try to keep it short, but I think the prosecutor did a fabulous job with kind of saying like, okay, yes, it's so easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. It's like, oh, you should have seen this and you should have done this and you shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, we all should have done something in their life, right? Some of us more so than others, regrets, etc. But as I look back, there, and even with my testimony, in my eyes, like it really was starting off to be like a great relationship.
Mhm.
And I knew that anything that I would say, like I say it's a great relationship, he says it's not a great relationship. I say I was separated, we are not. Like I already knew it's going to be opposite of whatever it is that I say. Like everything was going to be polar opposite so that there was going to be a stark contrast and then it was just kind of there. And so, but that's what I felt.
Yeah.
But then you sort of look and you're like, okay, were there some things like, were there some things that I missed? Well, I will share with everybody that, I have been diagnosed as a survivor of malignant narcissism, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so with that frame of mind,
Yeah.
I was able to sort of go back and kind of say, okay, like what's going on here? He wasn't abusive. He truly didn't lay a hand on me. And there's a lot of psychological things, I think, that sort of transpired that sort of, the framed as like, hey, don't you want to go and get an education? Like,
Right.
I'm so supportive, but really, like, what was the intent is because maybe you didn't think that I was good enough for you.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Like, you're not going to, at the time, you're like, oh my gosh, like my husband's so supportive of me. I'm going to go and I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to get my master's because, he had all these degrees and stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, you want to be better. Right. But just stuff like that really sort of sticks in my mind. It's like, did I really do that for the right reason? Right.
Yeah.
So very subtle. And then you get to other things that you're sort of looking back and you're like, when I met him, like seemingly normal guy, nothing really off the radar. I joined the Navy when I was 17. Okay.
Mhm.
So I did not have a college fund like set up for me. Like it was like figure it out. And so I just made do. I just was an adult, I had to get like a waiver to get in, and so I was just so used to like just my parents, they loved me, they supported me, but like, look, the reality was you got to figure it out. And
Yeah.
so I definitely was an adult a lot sooner than maybe even a lot of kids are nowadays, which, here or there, but in his case, it was just kind of like, okay, like his parents were always very supportive. His parents are very good people. I think still they're very good people,
Mhm.
but at the same time, there was like, there was like an expectation that they would just be there for him. Like they're just going to be there. And so like the accountability is concerned, there's something there, again, like maybe it was because I was a little jealous that he had like parents that were super like all over, you know what I mean? And just really so supportive. Maybe that there's a little bit of that too, but it's also giving a little bit of failure to launch, in my opinion.
Okay.
A little bit, as far as like, okay, why are they paying their cell phone bill? Like, like probably, you know what I mean? Like probably like we should do that. Right. And so eventually that happened, but there was a lot of that kind of stuff. So, as far as like huge red flags, none of those actually came until after we had been divorced.
Okay.
And so the biggest one I think I can say is that looking back at the timeline, 2017 rolls around. So this is a year, it's 2 years after we're divorced.
Yeah.
And he got out of the Navy and then, oops, I'm going to stop paying everything. Well, he knows I'm not dumb. he knows that I'm a veteran, and I was a Navy wife. I knew that I could go to his command and they would make him pay and
Yeah.
do what he needs to do. Like, they're very big on that.
Yeah.
They still are. So how convenient that you get out of the Navy and then boom, like, you're just going to stop doing stuff, right? Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know, right? We'll never know, I think.
We'll never know.
But it was the same exact time. So the year before then, when I thought, oh, we're amicable, we're so nice, he's so supportive, I think that he might have been buying some time until he knew he was going to be getting out. So of course he's going to pay everything on time. He wasn't going to refinance anything yet. But like, it just goes to show, maybe like there's a lot of premeditation, a lot of pre-planning involved with that I just wasn't aware of, because I was like, oh, this is so fortunate. We both found someone and we can like remain amicable. I can see the dogs. Like, we can be kind of friends, but not like super besties or anything like that, but like cordial.
Yeah.
But no. And so that was like the biggest kind of red flag, I would say, post divorce. And, you know, I went to his parents, through his brother, because his brother and I were a lot closer. And I'm like, I do not mean to bring you into any of this. Like, this is a last ditch effort before I feel like I need to get this off of me and get it into court, because maybe he'll respond being a lawyer. And so like, I'm going to just do it the right way. And I'm going to go through the process, you know? And, you know, I think that they tried. It sounds like they tried. I didn't know all the stuff until I went back and watched, you know, and listened to stuff to know that, like, you know, the dad had, you know, Wayne had gone and seen him. I mean, that doesn't surprise me, actually. I mean, it makes sense that he would. I think they were concerned about him. I think that he cut them out of everything. They had no idea what was going on, and they tried. And you can't force someone to do something. And so it sort of forced my hand to take it up. I mean, you guys heard in my testimony that, like, you work in the government, like, you need to be on point.
Yeah.
It's not like a regular civilian job. I mean, they look at everything, especially, you know, security clearance stuff. And I mean, that's my livelihood. And so like, I can't wait for you to get your life together to get this settled.
And so my husband, before he got out of working for the federal government, he had a top secret clearance. And so they would look at me like as his wife. So I understood that if there is outstanding debt, if there are all of these things happening, that could affect somebody's clearance. And if he couldn't maintain his clearance, he couldn't maintain his employment. And that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
2017. So was it before the birth of your child or after?
So it was after. So my daughter was born December of 2016.
Okay.
I had a very complicated pregnancy, and I actually almost died during pregnancy, during pregnancy and then during birth. I had cholestasis, which is super rare. The only thing that tells you that that's happening, and maybe this is a PSA for everyone, if you're pregnant and your hands itch, tell your doctor. It's random, it's weird, but if your hands itch on the inside, please go get checked, because I instinctively was like, no, something is very wrong. Like, I'm going in right now. Like, I just knew. Yeah. I wish I would have listened to my instinct this whole entire time, right? It was like, you know, but for that I did. And so we are both here, healthy, happy, safe. But, you know, it was really, really tough pregnancy. It was a really, really tough birth. So, you know, again, he was paying and stuff. He was still in the Navy. I don't think he would have cared, maybe either one way or another. If he was out of the Navy, maybe he would have done that during all of that. So I guess I could be glad that wasn't happening also at the same time. But yeah, it was really, really tough. I mean, eventually, again, you know, we got back into, you know, normalcy, whatever that looks like. And then having to deal with, you know, bill collectors and notices. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's going on?
So you started receiving all of that for the outstanding things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as soon as it stops, because I had credit monitoring as well, just as a safety precaution, you know, for identity theft. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, why is this dinging? Like, what is happening? And it's just like, I would just see it. And, one thing I think
Mm.
it was interesting to hear his take on this was just like the whole ordeal with the house. I'm sure some of your community was like, what is going on with this house? Right. So, because like, wasn't appropriate necessarily to go through all of that, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to share it here. Like, I had to beg the court to do what's called a special commissioner for the sale of
Oh,
property.
okay.
Yeah, which you can do. It's
Yeah.
like, it's a thing. It's not easily granted, but given that it was about to be foreclosed because he wasn't like, and if I had a foreclosure, I for sure would have been like toast. Probably. I don't know, maybe not. But I was like, what do you got for me, to my attorney? And she's like, well, we can try to get this, but don't get your hopes up. Well, they heard the circumstances of the case and they're like, yeah, granted.
Yeah.
And so we had this third party. I'm like, great, remove me off of this, get her on board. Oh my gosh, it was such an ordeal. Like he was like squatting in the house. He was like not paying, squatting. Like, I don't even know what was going on. I never broke into the house. Okay. I had special commissioner permission. It was supposed to have been vacated and it was my job to clean out the house to sell it. And
Yeah.
so that, if that's breaking in, I don't know, but I made sure to get clearance because I'm not going to be tripped up.
Yeah.
We also lived next to two Fairfax County police officers.
Okay.
So vandalism, probably not a thing.
Mhm.
They always had their parked cars right where
Okay.
everyone could see. So
Yeah.
nobody was messing with anyone. We were like so fortunate that
Mhm.
we had these two police officers right next door to us, back to back. So if they would have seen or done anything, I mean, they would have acted, right? Anyhow, that was conveniently left out. But I will say, it was a whole ordeal. We ended up short sailing, which is still not ideal, right?
Yeah.
But it was better than a foreclosure. And I was able to explain, hey, these are all the steps that I took to try to get this not to be this.
Yeah.
And so I was finally able to get my clearance adjudicated. I'm still paying on a truck where I have no idea where it is. I'm
Wow.
still paying. I mean, I was able to negotiate. I mean, that's what I do for a living,
Yeah.
for the government. So it's like, well, got the skills to do it, so I might as well do it for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, they're still going to be coming after him, for the other piece of it, but we came to an agreement. But I still had to pay. I mean, was left with everything. It was tough.
And that's where I really like the work of Dr. Romani. And I'm going to link some resources of hers because somebody may watch this and they might want to dig into more of the differences between malignant and covert narcissism, or they might want to like or research some of these topics a little bit more. But she talks a lot about post separation abuse and how sometimes there can be financial, it can be emotional. If there are children, people can try to use the children. And not saying that that's what was happening here.
Right.
Because there are things that could have happened that could have made this easier. And those
Oh
things
yeah.
did not happen at
Yeah.
all.
And there was several times that I'm like, look, Nick, if
Mm.
you don't have the money, you need to talk about it now. Like, I will work with you, but like, I need to know. And it was just untruth after untruth. And so it was like so insistent that no, it's good. You're going to get the money. It's going to be fine. I'm doing this, that, and the other. And, I had heard about 90% of all of the stuff that you guys heard. If you listened to his whole testimony, it's
Yeah.
probably rough, but anyway, I had heard those before. None of that shocked me. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I heard that. The only thing I didn't hear is anything about Jim.
Okay.
Not a single thing, not a single word, not a single anything. Do you know when I heard about Jim? When did I hear about Jim? When he called me after he got arrested.
Oh.
Called me and he said, hey, I thought that you had already gotten your money. I was like, interesting. Okay. And then, he didn't ask me. He was like, well, you know that I would never do something like this. And I know better. I know that those calls are recorded. And I'm like, I am not saying I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I didn't. My theory, when I figured out what had happened, was he paid someone to do it.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Because like there was one thing that he's truthful about. He doesn't like blood.
Okay. Okay.
Like does not like blood. Okay. So that's kind of where I was thinking, because again, I was under the impression that he had all sorts of money,
Yeah.
and he had all sorts of means to do whatever. And so it was very surprising to hear that in that phone call, to be like, really? You like thought it was just good? Because I mean, I didn't say this, but like I have emails well after he left town saying, hey, I know I still owe you the money. I'm like, do you know you're also in contempt of court? Do you know you also have a bench warrant? Like there was several emails after.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking like, I don't know about that. Okay, we're just going to move on. I'm going to fight. I'm not going to react. That's another thing during the testimony. Lives for a reaction, tried to bait me several times during that. I wasn't going to fall for it because I had already learned what not to do.
So you mean like through the lawyer? So like the
Mhm.
cross-examination? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That, the cross, of course they're going to be mindful. I think that Doug did a wonderful job being respectful.
Yeah.
I think, he didn't like badger me or anything like that. He was doing what, Nick had asked him to do. I'm assuming. And so there was a few times where I was like, I'm going to answer your question and it's your job to follow up if you have any further questions. And I'm going to just be very like, here it is.
Yeah.
This is what we agreed to. The agreement is in the exhibit.
Yeah.
If he wanted me to go into that, then he probably, you know what I mean? Maybe you go into it, but it's not relevant to the murder case, which is another thing that I really want people to understand. This is framed as like, well, one, and we'll get to this, I'm sure. I identified Mindi, but really, like, it's like, well, okay, we don't have any evidence of Jim. We've looked everywhere. We've done all the things. What else could it be?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, logically, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, that was actually very minor compared to like the whole, identifying Mindi, which I know we'll get into, but
Yeah.
because that was really why they were like, yeah, and she was kind of a pretty integral part of this investigation.
So how did you become involved in this case?
Not by choice. So, so he leaves, right? We all established that he leaves town. And I just want to share that, like, I was like, well, he left town. He's got a warrant out for his arrest. I asked my attorney, should I be getting a restraining order? Because I think a lot of folks are like, why didn't he just kill the wife, the first wife? I saw that comment a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, me too. I wondered that too. So it was just interesting to be like, okay, well, I don't have grounds for that. Okay, fine. So I was keeping track of him. Like, as long as he didn't come back to Virginia, I knew I couldn't do anything per se.
Yeah.
But if he ever crossed into our Commonwealth, I absolutely could and would do something because, yeah, but I had to figure out where he was. And so I had been keeping up periodically. I mean, I think the investigator said, like, you can Google you and you can find you. Like, wasn't like rocket science, right? Like, there are traces. I mean, as much as everyone wants to think that you could just like go into hiding, like, not nowadays. No, you'd have to be like really sophisticated, right? And so again, I was keeping tabs to make sure he wasn't coming back into Virginia because he had just lost a lot, including maybe his liberty. And so he has nothing left to lose, basically. And so I believed I was a target. And I'm like, just in case, gotta do that, right? I had lost track of him after like South Carolina. It had been a little while. And I'm like, okay. And then I got into this on the stand, but I wasn't able to like finish the story because there was an objection.
Yeah.
But the whole story is like, I was just hanging out. It was New Year's Day, and somebody contacted me asking me, was I married to Nick? And I'm like, yeah, like, who are you? Turns out it's one of, on Mindy's side of the family, like one of their family friends of a friend. It was like a friend of a friend.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah, why? Oh, well, Mindy this was when the family was told from Nick that Mindy died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's so sad. Like, I can't believe that. Like, that must be terrible. Like, I mean, putting everything else aside, like, to
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
your wife. Like, I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I'm like, something about that doesn't feel right to me, to this person. And so she's like, yeah, me either. And
Mm.
I'm like, okay. And then like a little while goes, not much. All of a sudden, Nick is dead. Okay. I'm like, now
So
I know something's up.
you were told. You were
I
you were
was told.
informed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was told, right?
Yeah.
So it was Mindy died, and then and I took it at face value because
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
had nothing else to say it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh. And then Nick died. And I'm like, huh, that's convenient. I bet you that they're faking their deaths so
Oh,
that they can peace out of this country. I don't have any judgments. I'm good to go. Right? Fake your death, create a new life. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, I'm never going to be able to like collect. Right?
yeah.
So I'm like, well, where were they? Where were they living? Right? And she tells me, like, in part of Georgia. And so I'm like looking and I'm doing my perusing, and I come across the GBI sketch while I'm like looking for them, because I'm like, they're about to be out of the country, if not already, because they've already faked their deaths. And so I'm like, I'm going to try. I was not prepared for what I was going to find in that area. I'm like, that looks like Mindy. And I sent it to this other person who I'm going to keep her anonymous. She can,
Yeah.
come out when she wants. But I said, oh, expletive.
Yeah.
This looks like Mindy. This looks
Yeah.
like Mindy. And if it was dead, like, did Nick have anything to do with this? Like, what happened? My head was spinning. I was sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Having just like anxiety. I'm just like, oh, I got to call, former military. You see something, you say something.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit on information if it's not useful for the case. And boy, did I freaking pray that it was not her. I was like, I'm going to say it. And then it's going to be like, I was delusional. Like, I'm like, it's not going to be her. It's just going to be a coincidence and it's going to be fine. Right? That's the story I told. Well, then you get DNA match to Betsy. And then I fell apart. Like, that's how I became involved with the case. For sure got more than I bargained for. I was not expecting that at all. I had a whole different story of what happened to Nick and Mindy in my head. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Would he have gotten away with it if he like, wow, like if you hadn't done all of that? Because I don't know that the
I don't know.
family would have ever questioned his story, just because I think they trusted their daughter and I think they trusted him. And on a prior video, I talked about what con artists do. And there's a woman, Maria Konakova, she talks about confidence artists, that there are
Mhm.
people that use your trust, like they use what's important to you
Right.
against you
Right.
without you even being aware. Like, because you were trying to monitor things for your safety and
Yeah.
just to make sure that you and your family were going to be okay. And then you
Mhm.
stumble across this information.
Yeah. I was 100% like, it was the exact opposite of what I ever thought
Yeah.
would be happening. But yeah, I was in denial
Yeah.
hard. I was in denial, like, so hard. I was like, there's no way. Like, there's got to be an explanation. I don't know for a fact if it was just me. Like, I also had this other person. I'm like, look, I'm doing this anonymously because guess what? If I say, oh yeah, I'm the ex-wife, do you
Right.
really think they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, lady,
Yeah.
like, sure, we'll
Yeah.
get that, we'll get right on that, right? I'm like, no, you need to call and then you need to hear it multiple times, and then they just check into it to make sure that that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was agonizing until I got the call that like it was her, and like my whole world was like, this can't be possible. And then I really like explained it away. I'm like, yeah, he paid someone to do it. Like, but he's involved. I never,
Yeah.
for some reason, I always like had the idea that maybe he was involved. I just didn't know how intimately involved we were talking about here. Like, it's a very gruesome, horrific thing to do. I mean, not that it's ever okay to like kill anyone, but like the nature of how this happened is going to live with me. I mean, just having been around the person, married to that person, intimate with that person, it is so hard to come to that, like, you know, realization, and to sort of have that survivor's guilt that I still live with. I'm not going to lie and tell you I'm all cured, you know. Why not me? Or it could have been me, like, or maybe it was going to be me. I mean, we all have to remember that I was still going to be the loose end.
Yeah.
I was still going to be the loose end with whatever name change, with whatever new life that he was planning on doing. I truly think that that would eventually come to pass if like enough time would have passed from Mindi to where he thought he might not have any suspicion. And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? So just to like, obviously I'm speculating, so I'm not saying that that was the case, but like at the same time, those kinds of thoughts go through your head.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the heck, you know? And I think that, you know, people can learn, they need to know that, like, you know, he kept us separate for a reason.
Okay.
He kept us separate.
That part of the testimony, the fact that, and it's common for a first and a second wife to not necessarily get along, but for you to be called like she who shan't be named or whatever, and that's, but it also just seems like Mindi was incredibly isolated. If the whole gym story happened the way he says it, but what I mean by like him communicating all these things and telling her who she could and couldn't talk to, and now it's safe, now it's not, this is okay, this isn't okay, and to exert that amount of control over another person, all of it, it was so much. And my heart also, so for you, and then also Samantha, the person that she tried to get him to submit his ID, you know, proof of employment, like she did all the things. Who would know that like somebody would forge those things, and it's just, the whole thing is just so mind blowing. But I'm glad that Mindi did get some justice, and my heart just continues to break for her family. And I say on every stream, like, you don't know what you don't know, and everybody can look back and say, "Oh, I would have done this or I would have done that." Losing a child is hard. It is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, and everybody copes different. And also, I think based on everything I heard, it just seems like Nick was able to get his way and get out of things in a way. And I think that's why he testified. Why do you think he testified? He didn't have to.
Exactly. So the saying kind of goes like, he had the right to remain silent, just not the ability. Okay. So I just think like if you come to court with again, burden of proof is on the state. Never going to argue that. But look, I would be gathering as much as I possibly could to try to substantiate a person who was so intimately involved in my finances, my life, you know, all the things. You think you'd have some of that stuff to clear your name at the very least and be like, I think it was Jim that did it, like so I just, so I didn't know he was going to testify, but I did know. So what I mean by that was before my testimony, obviously I was told, can't watch, can't do anything. I eventually then watched it after my testimony because I was allowed to, but it came up and they're like, yeah, so like, what do you think? You think he's going to testify? I was like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, because it's wonderful to have the floor for these certain types of personalities. Again, no diagnosis here, but I will say, they like the opportunity to be able to craft the situation however it is they want. It's self-serving. I mean, that's what it is. And if it serves them, if they can glean some kind of benefit from that, they're going to tell that piece or version of it. But there's just so much that I think, looking back, that he may or may not have been, this may not have been the fate, who knows, but it's just, there's just like that need to over explain everything. And I think that it was just like, I don't know, it seems a little bit weird.
And that's what made his testimony less credible for me, is the giving details. I know it was a Tuesday. I know it was after this, and I know all things. And then when we ask basic things of like, wait a minute, why don't you have a W-2? Like, you worked for this company for years and you saw no income. All of that was just like, wow. And were you aware that he was borrowing money from that friend?
I had no idea. Well, first of all, the fact that, he said what he said about me, like, to her, of course, when people divorce, like, you also divorce the friend sometimes. Sometimes you could both be friends, whatever, but very rarely, I would say. So I already knew that, I wouldn't necessarily be like in close contact with any of his like old Jack friends that I really got to know and really love. I mean, Cameron's a wonderful person. I mean, she's completely just so giving and so trusting and just such a beautiful person, and always has been. She was a mentor for me too. It wasn't just, Nick. And so she just handles everything with such grace. I'm like, man, if I could just be half as graceful as you, I'd be in good shape. But he took advantage of that situation. And, I do think that if he would have just come to her and said, hey, I'm in big trouble. I owe this money and I can't make it work. Like, can I borrow money and like resolve this thing? And then we can, because we can work together. Right. Maybe he still wouldn't have paid. Right. Okay. That's fair. But, she would have done it. I think, I think she would have done it. I think she'd have been like, okay,
that would have been the ego, because even on the stand, he wouldn't admit that all of those charges were his. Like, I was mind blown that he wouldn't. There were some basic things that to me were clearly true, and he was just like, but it made him look bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of things that, like again, the emails. Well, after he did fail to appear, he was still saying like, I know I owe you the money. I'll get it to you. I'm like, how can you say that you thought I was paid? Like, it's just so weird. Like, I don't get it. Like, it was in evidence. Like, you saw it. Like, it wasn't like I made that up.
And the state didn't even need it.
No, they didn't. No. And, they had it and they still have it. And if they need it, they can use it. You know what I mean? But I just, I think there's a lot that could have been done certainly sooner. I mean, I did certainly try. I know that, there's a lot that goes into the settlement agreement, things like that. It just got so bad between us, and he was losing control of me.
Okay.
And so that was making everything just that much more like, okay, like, how is she going to react here? And for a while, like, I absolutely reacted. Like, I wasn't just like, okay, just don't do anything. I was like, excuse me? No. Like, you're going to be held accountable. Oh boy. Can't hold him accountable because, it's not his fault. And it was just like an excuse after an excuse. And I was like, you know what? I'm missing out on like my baby at the time, like her, like Miles, like I am putting too much of my energy into this. And that's exactly what he wanted. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done being nice because you know what? I don't want to be nice. I just want to be a good person. And so there's a difference.
Mhm. Yes.
And, I just said, I've got to take this. I've got to be transactional and I've got to take it up with the law. And then I actually I did watch Rob on Law and Lumber, and
Yes.
he did a fantastic job as well. I saw that that you had seen it as well.
Mhm.
Worried me, but it was a clerical error just to clear things up. We
Oh,
we were divorced. It's just it never made it into the file. I still have the decree that says we were divorced on this,
okay.
and all that other good stuff. But I was like, oh my God, Rob, what did we do? What happened?
Aw.
Scared me, but we're good. So yeah, it just never got entered for some reason. Not sure. I really regret not having an attorney. Like that was me being stupid. Like I
But
will.
and 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 I wanna reframe that because everybody described him as so kind
I know.
and gentle.
Mhm.
Kind and gentle were the words that just continue to be used
Yep.
to describe him, and I think that was the mask. I think and just I don't know him, I never met him, and just
Right.
hearing all that happened because some people are like, "How can these 2 things exist?" And
Yeah.
really, life is complex, and that's
Sure.
where it's not all good, it's not all bad, and
Right.
that's where I think because a lot of people are really mind blown that, his parents seem to be just continuing to support him, and that's where I wonder if it wasn't their kid, what they would think about all of this, because sometimes our bias comes in. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about confirmation bias and I can but like cuz you mentioned it in your email to me
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean,
how
just
that relates.
I can relate to his parents on a very
Okay.
deep level
Mhm.
because, you know, I was also in their shoes, even having been divorced for all that time. Even when he talked to me right after being arrested,
Mhm.
I still was like,
Mhm.
maybe he's involved, but he couldn't have done this, right? Like always trying to like find the silver lining and
Um,
like an explanation.
mhm.
I talked to his aunt as well right after he'd gotten arrested, and I'm just like, I just don't know. Like, I just don't know what to think. But like, I mean, you mentioned earlier also that your heart goes out to Mindy's family, of course, for losing their daughter. But you know what?
Yeah.
Those parents also lost their son. But
I,
sadly, they probably lost him years ago,
yeah.
and they're only remembering the good.
And I thought that they want to blame that on Jim, like that he wasn't the one that
Right.
orchestrated and he wasn't the one that was causing this rift and separation that
Yeah.
sometimes when we're going through something difficult, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, maybe it was. Sometimes it can be really hard
Yeah.
to look at things and see things the way
Well,
they
yeah.
are.
The cognitive dissonance. I was like,
It's
this
saying
can't
that
be true.
so it getting to the point where he's like, those aren't my parents, and listing
Right.
other people on and creating this whole he's a diplomat's child and they're his adoptive parents and like it was a lot and I really like to focus on helping the people heal the people that
Yeah.
are left after because a lot of
Yeah.
times people want to like oh like let's try to understand Nick and I'm like no I don't want to like that's
We can't. We don't have
like,
time for
like,
that.
how can we help the people that are still suffering with, the survivor's guilt, with coping with everything that they saw? I don't look at even if I could look at the crime scene pictures and everything. I personally, especially, and I wasn't involved in this case. I'm not, but
Right.
even if those things were publicly available, because
Right.
there can be the secondary trauma of just seeing something else happen and the lack of control that people have in that situation, it can have an impact. And I like to look at resilience, like what can we get out of this? Like how can we help make sure that, kids know some of these red flags that, oh, if somebody's words aren't matching their actions, that's a red flag. Or if
Right,
somebody is
right.
being, if they're controlling who you talk to and and they're doing it in a nice way. So I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
because I think it was framed in a way that's like, I'm saying this because I care about you and I want you to be safe. Like, I think it was framed in a way that might not have felt like control.
Well, and let's all think,
Mhm.
what were the last years of Mindy's life probably like? She was living like a fugitive,
Yeah.
basically.
Mhm.
Like on the run from who knows what, we don't know, but she's terrified to go outside.
Mhm.
She's terrified of something she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And she just like, so it's like he took more than just her life. He took away like her free will in a way. Like it changed probably her whole behavior. I mean, I'm not her, but
Yeah.
I can only imagine if I felt like I was being targeted, I would probably not be going outside. I would not be doing like, I would change the way that I lived. Can't ever see like your friends. You can only use this thing. And like, here are all these rules that you have to live by. And she was terrified, likely for years.
Yeah.
And just moving around like a vagrant, like that also just breaks my heart. Like,
Mm.
it's one thing to be, you're held to, responsibility and you need to do this and you don't want to do it. You don't want to be held accountable. Okay, fine. That's you. But to drag somebody else into the mix, knowing that you're changing everything about their life, to me just makes it just 10 times worse, if that's even possible, than what actually happened.
And I think healthy people will have that reaction. Do you know what I mean? Because as I hear all of that, the part that I'm thinking about is like, I think it was about control. And you even
Yeah.
mentioning that, just things getting more difficult with him as his control of you became less and
That's,
less. And so yeah, wow. Wow.
and also the physical separation.
Mhm.
I had time to
Mhm.
sit with my feelings.
Mhm.
I didn't like it all the time, but it gave me a lot of perspective. And so, like, I understand, like, not everyone can go no contact with
Yeah.
somebody that is doing, like, and so I'm not saying that that is the cure all,
Yeah.
but even just giving yourself a, a minute, take a beat, take a day, even to really like step outside of yourself and really look inward. It didn't take me long after separating
Yeah.
to figure out what I had been missing. Now, I mean, it's just trust but verify,
Mhm.
all those good things. That's good intention, but like really just stepping outside and getting away from the proximity. Because if you're just right there, you're always engaging with that person, you're going to fall victim. You're going to react.
Yeah.
You're going to, that's what he lived for. Like, oh, is she going to call me and like yell at me? Probably. Cool. Let me do this other thing to make her mad on email. Right. And so it was just, and I fed into that for so long. And finally, like, my husband's like, why are you doing this to yourself? And it took him just being like, look, I support you. If you want to do this, do it. But also, here's how you're showing up for us, right?
Mhm.
And so that was a huge part of me saying, you know what, enough is enough. I know better. Now I'm going to do better. And I'm going to just take it transactionally. I'm going to remove the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to deal with whatever consequences. And I am not going to be giving a million chances. Now, did I still give him too many chances? Yeah. And do I live with the guilt that like I could have had him like totally taken if we wouldn't have gone into that mediation room and continued? He would have gone off to jail. So
And I think that would have made you more of a villain in their
yeah,
lives. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, if that I've
yeah,
I don't know if that would have stopped, unfortunately. Do you know it?
yeah.
Like, that might have been "Oh, see, now there's a bigger conspiracy because I
Right.
paid the money. She got the money and still
Yeah.
you never got the money. Jim, I don't believe
No.
Jim exists." And, wow. And I really like the judge.
Yeah.
talking about the web of lies and just really talking directly to him and just I think the judge saw the evidence and did not think that the gym person existed. And I'm glad that Nick had a good defense lawyer because I think his defense did the best he could. And but in looking at the people that will forever be impacted by this, I wanted to talk about the term gray rock because that's what you were describing, that
Yes.
when someone in your life, and Dr. Ramani also used the term antagonistic because sometimes the term narcissist gets used so much that like
Yeah.
if somebody disagrees with you, people are like, oh, they're being narcissistic. And it's like, no, like everything isn't narcissism, but some things are. And
Right.
um, but gray rocking, when somebody is trying to get an emotional reaction out of you to just be boring. So they send you
Be boring.
this email accusing you of all of these things. You just say, got it. Or I'm not, no, I'm not going to do that. Or, but you just keep it short. You don't give them all of that energy. You don't defend yourself.
Yep.
There's also something called a smear campaign where they ruin your name to everybody else around you. And that can be really hard for the person that's really the victim of this because they will lose friends sometimes because
I did.
the other person can be very convincing and getting people on their side. And so sometimes they may lose some friends, they may lose some people. But in the midst of it, to me, the people that support them through that, the people that come. So I saw a smear campaign happen and I was scheduled to go on someone's podcast. And I reached out to them because there was an ex was really talking, saying a whole bunch of stuff on social media. And so I
Hmm.
reached out to him and I was like, hey, can we put the podcast on hold? Because there's a lot, there's some stuff going on. And he
Yeah.
just said, like he just said, okay, no problem. So things died down with all of that. Nothing major came out of it. And then later I was like, okay, I'm okay going on your show. Like we could do that. But if that person that was the product of that smear campaign, if they had spoken negatively about their ex to me, if they had like they didn't even try to defend themselves. And I was looking for the like I wasn't full, I was confused. I didn't know what to believe. And that's
Yeah.
how friends can sometimes feel where it's like, okay, he's saying that like I don't know where everything falls. And so sometimes, and that can be really hard to not be able to really defend yourself in the middle of that.
Well, and I got a lot of that feedback
Mhm.
from like the people who I love and I trust and who've known like all the things that I went through. Like, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you had all the things? I said, it's not about me.
Mhm.
It's never been about me. And yes, I already knew that if he testified, it was going to be a whole campaign. It was going to be a whole thing. No matter if I said little or if I said a lot. But if
Yeah.
I said a lot, then all that writing he was doing was going to be even more and it was going to be even more elevated. And I was like, I'm not going to feed into that whole cycle. I had already learned my lesson through all of the years trying to like get to a good point. And I look back on those emails and I'm like, God, look at how much time I wasted writing that email. God, look at, and I don't care. If you want to think one thing about me, great. If you want to think the other thing about me, also great. You do you. You have to discern based on what you hear. And so, have there been people that are like, oh yeah, you moved on fast? Yeah, I did. Cause you know what? I did find the love of my life. I certainly wasn't looking for it. It was the worst time in the world to happen.
Mhm.
And I told my husband so. But at any rate, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. And that is not what somebody like him wants to see. Because if you're happy, then something must be done about that. Like, that's not okay.
And
And so,
my
yeah.
face is doing all these things because it was like, so he's talking about you, but then not calling his relationship with Samantha an affair. And even his lawyer was like, wait a minute. Like even his lawyer was a
Mhm.
little confused about like,
I'm
so
glad actually you mentioned that because again, 90% of his testimony I'd already heard. I like old news. Okay, cool. the one thing that like it was the jaw dropping moment for me was like the whole Joy story.
Mm.
I was like, wait, so you're telling me that like Mindy's on her deathbed and you're thinking, let me go and do this other thing. What? Like with her friend, or he corrected himself, I think, but I'm just like, when people accuse also
Yes.
it's a mirror. It's a mirror. It's not about me. And so I'm just like, that's interesting. Like, so you just thought that that was a good idea to do that. Like, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that. I don't know why, but I just was like, oh my gosh, like my jaw hit the floor and I'm like, I don't even know what to believe anymore. It was already hard enough to see the testimony,
Yes.
just ups and downs. I mean, so many things that, you know, you want to be like, oh my gosh, that's not true. But you're like,
Mm.
that's his truth. I mean, he believed it, right? Said it like 1,000 times. Like, okay. And I believe him that he believed it. I'm not saying, I'm
Oh,
not trying to take that away from him.
mhm.
But at the same time, I'm like, there are real people here that have been hurt by
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day. And that's just, it's so sad,
Mhm.
you know, having to hear the victim
Mm.
impact statements, you know, his third wife's
Yeah.
heartbreaking letter. It's just, he has really affected people in such huge and deep ways. And, you know, I've had years to sort
Mhm.
of like quote recover, right? I don't
Mm.
think you're ever fully recovered, but at least you're, you know, functional. You know, his third wife, she's got a long road, but I have no doubt she'll get there. But it's going to be a long road
And
because I've traveled
and I
it.
was glad that she worked to get it annulled because, like, every
Yes.
her marriage certificate is a lie, like, everything about that entire relationship was just an absolute lie, and so my heart really does go out to her. Thankfully, it wasn't but even though it wasn't long, it still can have an impact because sometimes
Right.
people are like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So me looking in, I'm like, "Oh, thank," because I think they were yeah, like, I think he was arrested, I think less than a month after they had been legally
Right.
married, and
Yeah.
and so, and then to be arrested for a heinous crime,
Ugh.
and then to just realize all of those things, and so I love to share resources down
Yeah.
in the description because, finding the right therapist can be hard,
Yeah.
and thing that we talked about before the stream started is that many therapists aren't trained in how to support the victims of an antagonistic relationship, or if somebody is meeting criteria or is somewhere on that narcissism spectrum. So in my training, I was trained how to treat individuals with narcissism. I We received no training. We received like trauma treatment, but
Yeah.
never connected in this way because
Mhm.
um I still think sometimes psychological harm can be, and I don't like to like what's worse, what's better, worse.
Right.
There are people that they would leave if somebody put their hands on them, but somebody berating them, putting them down,
Mhm.
the psychological aspect or the financial or isolating them socially, there are sometimes that people don't realize, wow, this is harm. And some people are really crafty where you feel like you're the problem. Like there's
Oh,
something wrong with
yeah.
me in the midst of this. Yeah. What did that bring
Mhm.
up for you?
It did. It, you know, I thought like, oh my gosh, like did I cause all this? Like was it all like, you know, did he just snap after divorce and like that was it? Like he couldn't accept the fact that like we had just grown apart.
Yeah.
Like there we had been separated without being separated long before separation, if that makes
Okay.
sense. Like
Okay.
we were both getting our masters and like
Mhm.
just two different people.
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard to accept that. And like I'm sure divorce attorneys can attest to the fact like
Mhm.
sometimes crazy stuff happens after divorce. Now I
Mhm.
hope that's not what started all of this, like certainly, but I don't know, and I don't think we're ever going to know what actually did.
The way I go with it is that Nick is accountable for what Nick did. Does that
Right.
even if the one point, even if his judgment or any other things was a trigger, but like that's he should have handled that. There are other ways
Yeah.
to handle those things. Because what he did instead is according to all the according to the testimony and everything, is he lied and said he had $32 million, and he didn't, to
Yeah.
avoid being arrested. And so that's where anytime there's a pattern like that, where a person is continually like they're making poor choices, but they're not taking any accountability. Because you mentioned that earlier, that it was hard to get him to accept accountability. And there are people that externalize blame. And in therapy, we call it an external locus of control, where it's like, things just happen. Like, I just have the worst luck and there's nothing I can do. An internal
Mhm.
locus of control is where I think, okay, so I can't control the world, but I can my reaction, my
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
my
Mhm.
actions. I can manage me. And
Mhm.
when somebody has that, they often are healthier. They make better decisions, because when something goes wrong, I'm not sitting here like, oh, the other person who I have no control over has to fix it, or it's all their fault and I have no control over that. It's like, okay, what could I do different, or what is within my control?
I'm fine to admit that for a long time, I'm like, I
Yeah,
thought I can control him. Like, I'm like, no, I can't. Are you kidding me? I need to be able to control me. And so I'm like, I need to take back that kind of, my power over what I can control. You're right. Like, it's just, I was trying to, be like, oh, what if I just like worked with him? Maybe it'll get him. Like, nothing I was going to say or do was going to change the course of what he decided.
yeah,
Like, I swear I talked to it. I was like blue in the face,
yeah.
wrote emails, like just countless emails. It was just ridiculous. And I was like sifting through them. I'm like, there's still some that I'm like, I just can't even. It's just, I tried so hard to be like, no, we got to do this. And I'm like, you know what? This is it. Like, I need to be done. I need to be done, and I need to give control for the court system to do its thing, and that's what I need to do. And so thankfully, there's a lot of people in my life that were like, yeah, you do. you need to let go, Heather. Like, it's time. Like, you've done more than many people would have with giving the chances and giving the breaks and giving all the things, right? Because he was being so nice.
Mhm.
He's being so kind. And he's letting me see my dogs, and he's
Mhm.
letting me, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of things that were pulling in that direction. And so yeah, so I just hope that this helps kind of clear things up
Yeah.
as far as perspective. Again, we're not here to set the record straight. We're not here to diagnose, but at the end of the day, I always knew, and I always know that this was for Mindi. This was just, it's poetic justice for me. I'm not even going to lie, but that's going to be good enough. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's going to be what happens. And I mean, do I wish things were different? Sure. But am I going to dwell on all of the things? No, because what good is that going to ever do? It's not going to do any good for me. It's not going to do any good for my family. I've not felt this safe in
Mm.
in years.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty big win for me.
Oh. Do you know if Mindy's family or friends, if anything has been set up in her honor that's public, or do you know if there's anything?
So they had I believe they had a GoFundMe. I think it's now closed, but
Okay.
yeah, and I think they were going to do maybe a memorial or something like that, but or maybe they've already done it. I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's interesting you bring up her friends, because
Mm.
after again talking to them, they're like, God, like the things that he told Mindi about me were just, and they're like, I think, and this was a huge compliment. They're like, I think Mindi actually would have really liked you, which was, I mean, I certainly didn't, I
And so
said,
that's
I think she's a better person than me. She was certainly more kind than I was for a little bit there. But at any rate, like, it's just so unfortunate that like she died at the age I am now. And that just really hits home. And there's so much life that I have left to live.
mm,
And her life being cut so short like this, and just being in such a gruesome manner to have
mm.
died, with defensive wounds, and I mean, all of the things.
And that's where I wonder if he didn't want a second failed marriage or some I don't know. And I don't think we'll ever know. Um, but that's kind of where my mind goes of
Mhm.
just what was going on. And it's a huge red flag if you are dating somebody and they've been married before, or if when they talk about their past relationships, they're like, I was an angel, they were the devil, and I did nothing wrong. Like that's like, because in any relationship, it's a give and take. And so
It
even if
is.
it's a really, it's like, oh, I look back and I'm like, oh, I could have, okay, I was a little react, or I could have done this. Like
Yeah.
it's never all one person. And if somebody is describing it as it is all this other person, I am kind and gentle, I never did anything wrong.
Mhm.
That's where it's like, ooh, I wonder what the other person would say, and if there's more to that story.
Right.
Um,
Well, it took both of us to grow
yeah,
apart. Like we both,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like there was a lot of things that maybe we could have or should have done to have tried, perhaps, but I just, it
I'm
really
glad you did.
wasn't.
I'm
Yeah.
so
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, now I'm like, but yeah, there's just so much I think that if you don't feel it's right, and it's
yeah,
interesting that he made a comment about the night before our wedding. I actually took him aside and I said, I don't want to do this. Like I'm getting, I just don't. I didn't publicly be like, we're not going to make it. I was just like, hey, can we like postpone the wedding? No, like I wouldn't have been like, should I have listened to my intuition? Yes, that's another lesson learned we can tick off in the box, right? Should I have like just, dealt with the humiliation short term? Yeah, maybe so. But I mean, once we did get married, though, I will say, I mean, we didn't fight. He never raised his voice at me, not once. He was never violent. He never threw anything. He never broke anything. He never did any of that stuff. Like he was just like very calm. I, on the other hand, I'm from Chicago, so I like to be loud. And so I didn't yell at him, but I was certainly heated sometimes. And I'm like, what the heck? Um, but yeah, like it was just such a missed opportunity. But I mean, I think that I had to go through what I had to,
yeah.
and just kind of learn what I know now. And I know what a healthy marriage looks like. I've had one now, it would be 10 years in
Nice.
October. So, I mean, something's working. And let me just tell you, you fight when you're married. Spoiler alerts. So
And so,
I've learned
like,
that.
a another red flag is if there's no conflict, or if one person, because you mentioned that he never raised his voice, he never did any of those things, and
No.
yet, there can be, and I don't want you to get into it, but there can still be some things that happen that make a relationship not emotionally safe, not
Yeah.
that there's more.
Yeah.
And,
No,
um
it's true.
and my I'm just so thankful that you agreed to come on and have this conversation. I'm always reminded as I cover true crime cases that there is a family. There are people watching. I tried to direct my snark and my humor at the defendant, or at the person, because I could not believe some of the things that were coming out of his mouth. Like I just, and his testimony, as somebody that does not know him, it was painful to listen to, because it was just like, do you really think we're all that silly? And he said
Yeah.
all those words with his mouth, and thankfully nobody on the jury bought it, and
Yeah.
he was convicted. Um, but any final thoughts that you have as we close out?
Well, I just want to thank you again for allowing this space, to be able to. If this helps, one person, then I think it's all worth it. That's why I decided to say something. It's just trust but verify. Give yourself some space. Give yourself some clear time, and it really is one of those things where it's like once in a million things. It's kind of interesting. I think like the running joke now is like, if one of my friends is having a hard day, I said, well, at least you didn't have to testify your ex-husband's murder trial, so it can't be that bad.
Not that bad. Not that
um but it always gets a smile. But I mean, all kidding aside, certainly not the everyday experience, not what I bargained for by any means. But I'm just so glad that I did what I felt was the right thing when I thought it was Mindi, because I don't know what would have happened. And I don't want to know, but I'm just so glad that I had that moment of clarity to have said something, because I could have just as easily been like, I'm not getting involved, like I'm just done, like I can't find them, they're, fake death out in the country. But I
And
just, it was
and
hard.
sadly, with Mindy, I think one of the reasons he may have thought he could have got away with it was just how much her family loved him, and
Yeah.
how when he told her that they died, that you know and once again, I don't fault them, like,
No.
so I am, a person of faith, I'm a very liberal Christian, but I am a Christian, and I
Mhm.
think their faith was unfortunately used against them. The father's words, they were powerful to me, of like, "Okay," like, when we found out that she was deceased, I didn't need to see her, like, I knew, okay, like,
Oh,
and it's just, I think he used that. If something had happened to you, we all would have been like, wait a minute, where's Heather?" Like, no,
right. Right.
wait
Well,
a minute.
and I mean,
It would
yeah,
have been super suspicious. Like,
yeah,
so that's where
right.
I hope that in your mind you can I but and you never know what's gonna happen, but sadly, I think, nobody ever thought that he would have done something like this, and I think
Oh,
he
yeah.
was hoping that at least one person on the jury would think, "How could this former JAG officer,
Right.
graduate of Georgetown or wherever, how could
Mhm.
he do this?" And, the state had some pretty convincing evidence, I think.
They did. And, I now having a daughter,
Mm.
as morbid as this sounds, I
Yeah,
want to lay eyes if I get news. Like, I want to
yeah,
lay eyes, I want to lay hands, but not
yes,
everyone feels that way. I'm also a Christian. I also
yes,
believe in higher power, but I also want a death certificate. So, I
yes,
mean, again, everybody wants and needs different things, and
yes,
I respect that. But I am just so glad that when that all happened, that just one person was like, I don't know, like, yeah, but, and then
mhm.
they found me and they're like, does this sound right? And I'm like, no. And they were far removed from the situation, not up in the close
Yeah,
proximity. They could see it differently.
yeah.
So, yeah, we all learned a lot of things. Hopefully, everybody's learned some things too. If there are any follow up questions, I'm happy to navigate that. But I think we've covered a lot of really good takeaways, some good things that I've learned certainly. And then I hope that somebody can take those and at least feel like, okay, I know what to look out for.
So, thank you again. Please stay on. I'm gonna press end, and then we'll just chat real quick. Y'all, thank you all so much. I sat back and watched it and was able to hang out with you all in the chat. Once again, I thank Heather for reaching out via email. I'm glad it was really her, because I was almost like it was her email that she sent, requesting to talk more. She wanted to share her story, and I wanted to read this quote: that shame dies in the light. And what that means is that shame loses its power when it's brought out of secrecy and into the open, especially when we're able to share and witness stories in a safe and non judgmental place. And so, what I did with her was not at all therapy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was not I am a therapist, I am not her therapist. If my client was ever involved in a case, I would not be able to cover it, because I might know things because of my work. So I would never cover, like, that would be a ethical boundary, an ethical violation. If there's a case in Virginia or anywhere, and if one of my clients are involved, I would never ever cover it. And it really was an interview. I had never interviewed somebody involved in a crime like this before, and the amount of trust that she had, and it was such an easy conversation. Like, she really is a just phenomenal person. We were able to chat a little bit before and after, and once again, I'm just so thankful that that she did that. She also wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the person on the stand that we all saw is a healed woman, and that she's proud that she could help with justice for Mindi in her own way. All right. And that's me paraphrasing something that she sent me and just wanted to make sure was shared with the audience. Um, so Pin asked a question about Nick's. So, do you think that Nick changed more so after leaving the Navy, adjusting to civilian life, or was he already having issues prior? And what Heather said was that she believed so he was on time with making all his payments. So there is still a truck. So Heather mentioned in this interview, she is still paying. There's a missing truck. I don't know where, she doesn't know where the truck is, but I think the truck was in both of their names. He took the truck and he was supposed to refinance the truck in just his name, and he never did it. And he stopped paying on it, and it's on her credit. And she can't remove it from her credit. So she had to reach out to the creditor, and she's agreed to pay an amount. I guess they're still going to go after him for an amount. And so it's just it sounds like after he left, so if he was still in the Navy and not paying his ex-wife, you can be there can be disciplinary action from the command. She mentioned that towards the beginning of the interview, that he stopped paying, he stopped doing all these, he became this person on the run after he got out of the military, and that's when he stopped making the payments. He avoided the $1.5 million judgment and had the warrant for his arrest in Virginia that was never able to be executed because it sounds like nobody ever realized that was there. Um, and so, yeah, like there was just so much to this case. And I only cover cases when I think that there is something that we all can learn from it. So people send me cases all the time that are just horrific. There's a lot going on with it. And if I look at the case and I'm just like, I don't know what psychological principle or like, what are we going to get from this? I am a clinical psychologist. I'm not a forensic psychologist. And so forensic psychologists, they work in prison settings, they do evaluations of criminals, they do all of that. I work with trauma survivors. And I want somebody to that loves true crime to click on one of my videos and accidentally learn about gray rocking or learn about smear campaigns or learn about how to set healthy boundaries. And so I'm always sharing resources with you all, and that's why we call ourselves psych nerds here, because we are here to nerd out about psychology. And I she really shared great information, great lessons. And oh, B Michigan, you mentioned this made you cry for the families that are burdened by Nick, his parents, Mindy's parents, the friends, Heather, and Samantha. I would add his third relationship. I don't want to call her wife. Like thankfully she was able to get that annulled. And so tomorrow we are going to be talking about Rob Adelson and Wendy Adelson's testimony. Stay tuned because that might go live around, I don't know. So we'll see if I wait until 5 or if I do it earlier. We'll see what happens. I am in an EMDR, so eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I am loving the training. This is a 8 session, but each session is like from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is an intensive training. By the end, I will be able to offer this service to this new intervention to my clients. And so I'm really glad to add it to my tool belt. And just for the clients that it's appropriate for. And so I thank y'all for being here. I need to go on ahead. And so take care of yourselves, watch something funny, all those good things. Happy birthday to whoever. Oh, Lisa. Happy birthday, Lisa. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Y'all have a good one. Bye.